Hello everyone. So in this session we are going to talk about the service instance sharing feature in PCF. So before we go into the deep dive, let's try to understand the today's agenda. So first we'll try to understand what is the meaning of service instances in PCF, and then why would we need to share them across the orgs and spaces in this PCF. Then after that we will try to understand what all the flags which we need to enable in Cloud Foundry before we even start sharing the instances through different methods. So there are two methods through which you can share the service instances. One is CFCLI and the another one is Apps Manager. So we'll be talking about both of them in detail. In the last, we'll be talking about some of the tips, and we will be also recapping what all the things we have learned today. Okay, so let's go to the first topic, understand what is the meaning of service instances. So for that, we'll move to uh, PW's Pivotal Cloud Foundry's public version, and then see what is the meaning of service instance. So when you go to PCF, right, you go to the org, right, and then go to the spaces. So I have two spaces here, dev and prod. So I will quickly go to the dev space, and then I will go to the services tab. So in this services tab you will be seeing all the service instances which has been created so far. So when you need to create any service instance, right, there's an option here to add a service. So what is the meaning of this service instance first? So let's suppose you have an application in PCF which wants to connect to any database or any third-party service or any service which is available in the PCF. You need to create a service instance for that, and this what it will does is it does provisioning of that service, and it will return you the credential which you can use to connect to that service from the application, right? So in our for our exercise I am going to use the config server service. What this service basically does is it helps you to externalize your configuration. It points it to a GitHub repository where you will be keeping your configuration files, and once the service instance is created, then you can bind with this service from your application and then load all those configuration properties in your application. So if you want to create a service instance, you click on this add service, you search for that service. So if you type it config server, you will get it here, and then it will show all the plans which are available. So you can select based on your need what plan you want, and then go to the next screen. So here you need to give the name of that service. You type the service name, it should be unique so that it doesn't cause any replication error. In this specific service I would need to give the JSON input because I need to put the GitHub URL which it needs to point to, and if it is secure then you need to pass the credentials as well. So and then click on the create button. So once you create it, it will take maybe 10 to 15 minutes in PW's case. So to save the time, I have already created this service, so we are skipping this step. So once you click on the create, you will get this service like this in config server. Okay, so this is the way service instances are created. Okay, now let's try to understand why do we need to share these service instances across the orgs and the spaces, right? So let's take a use case, right, where you have an application which is going to put some messages into the RabbitMQ queue or any other messaging queue, and then you have the consumer application which is supposed to read that message. Now let's suppose if these two systems or the applications are handled by different team, and they do work on different spaces or either totally in different orgs, right? So then it is very difficult for you to design this application because your service will be only available in the space where you created. So for example, let's go to the dev environment and services. I can see this config server service available here, right? Because I have created in this. Now if I go to the another space, what I have is prod. So see, there is no service here. So let's go back to the again and to the topic we talked about. That the second thing is that we need to ensure that certain flags are enabled before even we start sharing the instances, right? So we have to um, check that what are the required flags are there, which are they enabled or not. So there are two things we need to check. First, we will be running this command called CF feature flags. So when you run this command, you will see what all the flags, feature flags are there in this Cloud Foundry, and the one which we are looking for is the service instance sharing, which is the second last one, and that is showing enabled to me. But if for any reason this is showing disabled, then what you can do is you can run this command called cf enable feature flag service instance sharing. But please note that this can be run only by the admin role. So if you are not the admin, you have to contact your admin, PCF admin, and then ask him to run this command for you. So just ensure that this feature flag is enabled before you proceed further. The second thing what you need to take care is about the service broker. Okay, so we talked about the service instance. Every service instance has behind the scene service broker, which provides the 5 APIs through which they are being provisioned. They can be binded, they can be unbinded, they can be deleted. So this service broker is supposed to also provide you the permission to share it, right? Uh, so if I'm using the config server service, this config server service broker has to have shareable attribute in its metadata, which should have the value true. If it is not true, then this service broker will not support to share the instances with multiple space. So when the request come from the different space, it will not able to take care of binding and unbinding request, right? So that is the second thing which we need to take care before we start sharing the instances. Now, as we discussed, there are two methods to do the instance sharing. First one is the through CFCLI. So it is very simple. You have to just run one command which will ensure that it will be shared to the other space where you want access. So in our case, what we'll be doing, we'll be sharing our config server service instance with another space called prod, right? So let me go and run this command. So if you see, it will be sharing it with the prod. It just takes few minutes only to get it done. So if you see, it is done right now. Now if I go to the PCF and if I go to the um, prod instance, then I will see there is a new service instance has been created for config server. So this is not a new service instance, it is the shared one which is being shared with the dev space. Okay, so if you go here, it will show you also that this has been shared one. It has been shared uh, with the prod space by someone else. Okay, so that is what it shows. Okay, now we need to see how to unshare this instance if we need to at some time, right? So let's run a command which will unshare this config server instance with the prod. So I'm adding just one more flag here which will enforce to unshare it without even asking me yes or no. Otherwise it will prompt you to enter yes for confirming. So you can avoid it by using this flag. So it has been unshared now. If I go back to the this prod, and if I see in the services, there is no service now, right? So there's the way you can share your one space service instance with the another space. Okay, similarly you can do it for the other org also, and in that case you need to just provide the org name with the -o. So that is the way you can share with the other org, other space as well. Okay, so now let's go back to the another method, which is the apps manager, and this has been added in the PCF 2.4 version. Till 2.3 it was only to the CF CLI it was available. Now with the 2.4 it is available. Apps, sorry. So with the apps manager, what we have to do is let's go back to the apps manager and let's go to the dev space. Now here if you see in the service, share service instance, right? So using this button, if you click on this button, it will show you all the spaces where you have the access as a space developer or a space manager, and then you can share it by just clicking on that particular space. If I have access to the multiple orgs, then it will show all those orgs also and those spaces. So now I'm going to click on share button, and within few seconds it will be done. So so now you see that instance has been shared, and if you want to unshare now, you will see a delete icon here, which we can use to unshare it. Okay, so just be careful before you unshare any service instance, because it will unbind all the applications which are bound to this service, and that will cause all your application failing. Okay, so just be careful before you do unshare. Take care of your application, unbind them from the service. Okay, there is one defect I found it out. So you see this delete icon is coming, but service. Okay, if you refresh this page, this delete icon is gone. Okay, so there's some issue with the UI screen with the apps manager, which is causing this issue. I believe they will be fixing it in next upgrade. So that is the non-bug. Okay, so now let's talk about some of the learning, some of the tips which I have learned by playing with this. First thing is about um, the use case which we talked about, right? So if you have an application which has a producer which puts the message on the MQ, you want that application to have the right permission to those message queue, but the consumer should have only access to read the message. It is not supposed to put the messages back into the queue, right? So how will you ensure that it is with the right permission, right? So for that, what you can do is in the broker, right? In the broker, there are two fields which you will be getting while you are binding the service, with binding your application with the service. And these attributes are context.spaceGID and the bind resource dot space gid. So if you are getting the value in context dot space gid, it means you have come from the originator space to bind the service. And if you are getting the value populated for the field bind resource dot space gid, it means you are coming from the space which is with whom you have shared the instance. So that way you can differentiate from where the request is coming, and based on that you can provide the access, certain the access either read or write level, right? The another tip is, when you share the service instance, you don't have any existing service instance which has the same name in the target space, otherwise it will fail. Okay, and the third one is, which I already shared, that you should take care of your application while doing the unsharing, because it will unbind all your application with the service and it may fail. So these are the tips and learnings I have come up with so far. Just to recap, what we learned today is that with PCF 2.3, we got the new feature through the CFCLI to share and unshare the service instance with multiple orgs and space. And with 2.4, we got this feature on the apps manager as well. So these features are very good. This can help you to fix some of the use cases to get through, and it can also help you to save cost in case of you running one instance of the service serving multiple application. It will help you to reduce the PCF cost as well. So before we close this session, this is the URL and the blog site where I have